Hi, everybody. Good morning. Look at my notes. You like that? Is that fun? So here's why these look like this. I used to be too proud and arrogant to let anybody know that when I channel, I do this. So now I have my channel notes, which means I can look at them and that frequency can open back up. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Dr. Gudal Kaba. I'm a psychologist and a naturopath, but mostly I'm a medicine woman. I'm a spiritual teacher. I sometimes can channel, usually when it's a talk or a teaching. And I use the information of brain science and psychoneuroimmunology and traumas and physical health as parameters to help that spiritual teaching, like the medicine people of old, right? When everything was more one, when we knew that wellness and family troubles and family and love and connection all affected our health, and our health affected those things. And none of those things can heal without some commitment to faith, divine source, God, Brahma, Allah, whatever word. I tell people I'm a Gandhiite. Don't you guys love that? That came out of my mouth one day. They're like, well, what is that? I said, well, here's what Gandhi believed. Gandhi believed that every single religion had power, had truth, authenticity, and it had its unique pathway, all of them, to the same place. So pick your road. We're all going to end up here. So I think unity is a little bit like that. A little church of Gandhiites. Does that work? Can't be so bad, right? So when Claudia asked me to speak during her transition, oh, by the way, on the thing it says transformation and the talk is transition. I love that. You know how the divine pokes you? Well, the talk today is about how transition brings you to transformation. Just saying. We got a little head start. So Claudia was talking about would you come, and I know it must be very difficult because she's amazing, right? Everybody miss her? Yeah, of course. And it was hard for her to leave. I think I can share this. And I said, well, how do you want me to handle this? And she's like, well, one of the things that you're really working on in your own life are transitions and growth from that. She goes, and everybody that I love is going through a transition because I'm leaving. It was very hard for her. She goes, well, you talk about that. And I said, absolutely. Absolutely. So this talk, the title anyway, came from Claudia for you, through me. She loves and misses all of you very, very much. So what is a transition? You know what, though? Sorry, I'm being guided. Can we close our eyes? We're going to say a prayer. We're going to say a prayer. We're going to do a prayer. Open your hearts. My guides don't like it when we don't set protection. I invoke the spirit guides of north and south and east and west to stand around us and around this building in protection and keep all negative energies out while the teaching of today comes through. I invite all of your ancestors that want to help you today, your spirit guides and the angels you were born with, all of us, to come sit by your side, all of our sides, as this work of transitioning includes all of them, not only in the life that they led, the life they're leading now, and how they're going to lead us this life. And in that, open your hearts to know that today's another opportunity here at Unity to grow, to feel love, to feel comfort, and to receive that with all of your heart. Amen. Oh, you can't hear me? All right. I tend to get very quiet when I'm channeling. Is there any way to turn that up? Thank you. Thank you. You can always know when it's not me because I tend to be really loud. So if you hear the whisperer, apparently the people I work with call me the whisperer. I don't like it. I kind of like it. Okay. So for my medicine today, I did not bring my whole bundle, but it's always important to bring some medicine. So I brought my prayer beads to represent the circle of life and the medicine wheel. And I brought Lord Hanuman. Anybody familiar with any of the Hindu gods? Well, Hanuman is the greatest devotee to God. And every statue or every image you ever see of him, he's in total devotion. And I carry him around these days to remind me of the reading earlier. Let go. Be in devotion. He's got the most beautiful face. He's a monkey god. He's like the head of a monkey in the body of a human. He was the son of the wind. But most importantly, he dedicated his entire life in 100% pure devotion. So any representation of him is always full-hearted and bowing. Because in devotion, we can really learn trust. We can let go. We can let go. So what are transitions? There's biological transitions. There's psychological transitions, spiritual transitions. And transitions are uncomfortable. They create discomfort. For example, everyone thought April was January. Who was uncomfortable? Everybody was squirrely. And look, that's kind of a simple thing. It was bad weather. It wasn't the weather we wanted, right? So the transition didn't happen the way we wanted it to. Social media is exploding with whining and whining. Who here was a whiner in April? Come on, fess up. Think about that. Something that simple causes that much discomfort. What about the heavier things? But there's the natural ones. That was a natural one. We weren't in charge of that. It's spring. Magnolias are in bloom. It's all good, everybody. It's okay. May came. So the natural psychological development. Infant, crawling, walking. It hurts. Doesn't it hurt? Growing pains? Anybody that's been around babies or have had babies, like that first, trying to grow and the crying that comes, teething. They say if adults had to teeth, we'd kill ourselves. It hurts that bad. It's an interesting phenomenon being on this earth plane of Mother Earth. I don't know what they're doing in those other galaxies. I have no idea, but I know what we're doing here. It hurts. Babies crying, just to cut teeth so they can eat bad food, so they can get cavities. The whole thing's really crazy. But in that discomfort, what do we do in that natural transitioning time of life? We comfort them. Well, we're supposed to be. We comfort them, right? Soothe them, comfort them. And then the teeth come and they give us a smile and we melt. We're butter, right? The greatest moment. But that moment is grace. That moment brings us to grace. That's a transformative moment. No teeth like Granny. Teeth now that little baby's biting you. Right? Because now they have teeth and they love to bite. Like puppies. Not unlike puppies. Or how about that from crawl to first step? Get up, fall, get up, fall, get up, fall. Hit their head. Oh my God. Right? And then they do, and they walk toward us. We melt. Transformative moments, those tiny little moments. That's what it's all about. But look what we have to go through. We were so squirrely for the month of April because it snowed. That's pretty bizarre, but it still snowed. But that discomfort is what we have to pay attention to, because if we're not careful, we get locked in the discomfort and all of the tapes. 35 to 50 thoughts a minute. Think about that. It's kind of like a thought a second. And people with anxiety have double. And we're aware of maybe 3 to 5 of them. But if we pay attention, our discomfort, in natural order of things like the baby or what we're talking about, there's physical pain. But there's always a thought, not when you're an infant. But as adults, we have thoughts about it. And we're going to come back around to that. It's really important. Because without the pain, without the thoughts, there can't be growth, there can't be transformation, and we can't find grace. And yet, we're wired to hold on to the pain. It's a setup from day one. This spiritual life thing, the moment we say we're going to be on a spiritual journey, don't things kind of change? Sometimes for the worse, I'll die of boredom kind of a thing. I'm going to come back to that. It's a setup. There's a story, it went viral. It was on social media for a while. It was a rabbi who's a psychiatrist, Dr. Abraham Tversky, I believe. And he did the parable about the lobster. Did anybody see that? It's really quite lovely. So it's like a minute and a half. But he talks about how the lobster it grows. Lobsters can get up to 50 pounds. We just don't see them because they can't trap them that big. Traps are for smaller lobsters. But they keep growing. But they have these little shells, and the shells are hard. So it turns out and I did look it up, by the way. The investigator in me wondered if it was just a rabbi's parable or if it was true. Turns out it's true. Turns out that it hurts when they're growing. Hello, world. So they have to pop that shell off, be vulnerable to the new shell grows. And they do that over and over and over and over again. Sound familiar? But by the time they pop that off, apparently they have pain. Now, I don't know how they measure the pain thing, but it's clearly uncomfortable. And they have to go behind, their burrow and their rocks, and for 2 weeks not come out. They come out with their new shell. They've grown with a new shell. They look different, walk different. But here's what's also really wonderful. The old shell, before it leaves, it drops some of the calcium and the minerals and the magnesium and the DNA. It's not that much different from us. So it kind of keeps what it's going to keep using and sheds the rest. That's the idea of transition right there in nature. Isn't that beautiful? So we're all a little bit like lobsters. We keep growing and growing and growing. So transitions are psychological, they're biological, and they're spiritual. And we don't always ask for them, right? Sometimes they're just life milestones or seasonal changes. People are born, they die. But sometimes we choose our transitions. Claudia and Tony chose. Difficult choice. But it felt right to them. But in that, there's pain, right? There's growing pains. There's loss. There's loss of predictability. There's loss of somebody we love, even though we know they're okay. But it feels like a death. Little bit when we lose somebody we really care about. Someone who's been there, who's offered comfort. So important. Someone dies. We lose a job. Our finances aren't what we thought they would be. We were great yesterday, today I fell. Now I'm in a wheelchair. Those are transitions that we're not expecting. So if we're struggling and in pain like the lobster and the babies and the children in, April, just from natural things, what about those we didn't ask about? That's where we really have to be careful. Because if we don't find a way, first and foremost, to say that discomfort is normal. Because what do we humans do? We start trying to avoid it. We start spinning with our own stories, the ancestral stories. That's why they're all here today. Our ancestral stories of, told you, it's always this way. What'd you think it was going to be? Who do you think you are? Am I the only one that hears those voices? Okay, just checking. But then we get caught there like in a loop. And the problem with that is it won't allow growth. Remember the story earlier, I'll die of boredom? What does that mean? Sure, we get that. But from a physiological level, a neurophysiological level, what does that mean? Without stimuli, without the discomfort, without growth, we decay. We go backwards. And we go backwards into those thoughts. And that becomes our reality. And then the voice is so happy because it gets to go, told you. Told you. Think about how important that letting go is. Being one with the discomfort. So what does one do? A huge thing happens or a not so huge thing happens. It doesn't matter. We don't get to judge the size of the transition or the pain of the transition. But it's our job to know that discomfort must be because it's in that breaking of the shell. It's in that growing pain. The 10-year-old becomes a 12-year-old. They were 2 feet tall, then they're 4 feet tall. Like, how does that happen? You ever think about that? Like your kid goes to sleep, wakes up 2 inches taller, like they grew bone overnight. It's remarkable, right? But in that bone that they're growing the same thought patterns in DNA. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Then they hit the stinky phase. So they're hurting when they're growing bone in bed at night. They're crying, remember? They cry, it hurts. Then they hit the stinky phase and we're uncomfortable. Remember those adolescents? They're pretty stinky, right? If we don't help, if we don't remember that that same DNA keeps building and building and building, we're recreating the same thoughts. But when we help comfort, this is normal, honey, it's okay. Yeah, it hurts. But look what we get from it. Now, those are the natural order of things. A little easier. What about those harder times? How do we bring comfort to ourselves when we're in the discomfort, when we need faith the most, when we feel let down by Source the most? How do we find that divinity? How do we find that devotion? And it doesn't have to be directly to God. It has to be devotion to truth. Without discomfort, human beings don't evolve. Without transitions that cause discomfort, there's no evolution. There's no growth. We'll be the same person at 50 that we were at 13. Oh, I know those people. Sorry. We can choose that, but you see, that's the point. We choose. It doesn't matter. We can choose not to grow. That's totally fine. You guys are sitting here, so on some level there's a choice of wanting more. So it's in that choice. We can choose to not know this. We can choose to swim in our thoughts. It's very hard to stop those thoughts. They go back 64 generations, at least. Wired that deeply into our DNA. So when somebody says karma, that's what karma is. Karma are the thought patterns, action patterns wrapped into your DNA that whatever your ancestors didn't clean up, we get to. Yay, us. And what we don't clean up, our progeny has to. So worst case scenario, look in the mirror and you think, oh, do I really want the next 5 generations to be thinking and feeling these things? When we accept the discomfort, as painful as it is, as big as those losses may be, when we accept the discomfort, we can bring in comfort. And comfort comes in many ways, right? Comfort comes in love. Comes in love. Ultimately, what is devotion? It's love. It's on my knees love to truth, to divinity, whatever that means. Because we're all Gandhiites, so it can mean whatever it wants to mean. But to that divinity of truth, to know that if I let go, if I accept this transition and its discomfort, what do I need then for my comfort so I can find grace and transformation? Now, when we put it that way, isn't that something you'd want? Like if somebody said, would you like to have a little discomfort to get grace and transformation? Would you hit check? Yes? I think so. I think we would. I totally think we would. So we have to tend. You know, like we tend our garden. We plant a seed. Okay, we don't know if that seed's feeling any pain, but I don't know, popping through the earth can't be easy. But it does. But then we tend to it, right? We clear out the weeds because if we don't, it's uncomfortable. And if it's in too much discomfort, it's not going to thrive. Still no different, you see? So we pull the weeds, we till the soil, we fertilize it, we make sure there's water. What are we doing? We're tending. What is tending? It's comforting, right? So how can we self-comfort? How can we ask for comfort that we need? The only way we can do that is to be aware of our thoughts and notice our thoughts are saying, you don't deserve this. Of course this was going to happen. Bad you stink. God, they won't shut up. You should have heard them this morning. Oh my God, they were just busy trying to distract me so that I wouldn't be able to be a pure enough channel to do the work today. Because I'm in transition. And when we're in transition, they get louder. You see? So it requires more tending and more awareness. That's what consciousness is. A pure devotional life doesn't mean you have to be pious and not cuss and not drink a beer. Doesn't mean that. What it means is to be as conscious as responsible in accepting the discomfort so you can tend to comforting self and other, because in that moment there's grace. So close your eyes for a minute for me, if you will. Think of a time when you looked at somebody, anybody, or anything, and you were totally present, and the love that washed over you. And as you're remembering that moment, remember your eyes. Do you remember your eyes? I see smiles, so I think that's a yes. Awesome. All right, now keep your eyes closed and remember any time that someone looked at you that way. I know it doesn't happen often enough, but we're going to change that today. Someone looked at you that way. It could have been a baby, could have been a lover, could have been a puppy. Puppies are great. They always look at us like that. Puppies are the best. That's called darshan. In the Hindu tradition, when there is love through God that comes through our eyes, it's called darshan. People sit in front of holy people so that they look at them. In India, they go to temples and temples and temples and temples, not to see God, but for God to see them. Because in our need, in our absolute necessity for transitioning, for transforming, for a higher consciousness, for grace, we must be seen. That's really what we're talking about, being seen. And first and foremost, we have to be the ones that see. It has to be us. We have to see that we're in pain. We have to see we're in discomfort. We have to see it's truly a transition, and it must be. And because it must be, we have to see that through God's eyes, through darshan. Then magic happens. Does the pain go away? Well, we all know. We've all been here a little more than a week. So we all know pain does go away. But how is it going to go away? Is it going to go away into the broken record? Or is it going to go away into a transformative moment where we change, we transform, we transition to grace because we see. It's a darshan. If anybody's been to any of Paul Selig's workshops, he'll do that. He'll look you. The guides will look through his eyes. So think about it. I think we go to church so that God can see us. When I was in India one time, there's a story, and I'm not going to get it 100% correctly, but in the Shiva temples, there's a story of a little boy. Now, when you walk into these temples, they're massive, right? So you walk through these hallways to the inner sanctorum. You can't take pictures. And that's where the statue of Shiva will be, and then his consort Parvati will be next to him. And people go and they throw flowers, and they show lights, and they pray. But they stand there and they look, and it's a statue, but they're waiting for Shiva to see them. But in these particular temples, there's a little boy, because apparently this boy, the legend goes, back in the beginning of time, was so devoted to Shiva, he didn't see anything else. All that mattered was his devotion. His father used to get mad at him and shake him and say, you have to go work, you have to do this. And all he would do was say, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And he prayed for Shiva to take him, prayed for him to take him, because he just wanted to be with Shiva. So when he was about 12, Shiva turned him to light. And his job is he's hiding because he can't deal with people. He's just Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Such devotion. So he has this little sanctorum that you have to walk around the temple to find. And he's facing away. And it's like, this brick thing. You go around in front, and there's this statue of this little boy like this. And you're supposed to do this. Tell Shiva I was here. And you wake him up, and you go, will you tell Shiva I was here? The whole idea, to be seen. It's because he's so devoted, his job is to make sure all devotees are seen. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that a great story? So I had the best time looking for him all the time. I'd get lost because these places are huge. But think about that. That is about transformation. That boy's story is a transformational story. It's that transformation to light. So how can we help comfort? Sounds? In the beginning there was the word. Every single thing has a sound. Heartbeat, right? What does a baby want to do? Skin to sin, heartbeat, sounds. It doesn't matter what sound. Find a sound. It can be Hebrew, it can be Aramaic, it can be Sanskrit, it can be English. All sounds hold power. Wayne Dyer, the Ah meditation, right? Well, my spiritual teacher was Wayne Dyer's spiritual teacher. And he often talks about when Wayne Dyer was going through that horrible divorce and started drinking again and got sick. He said, I did one thing, I sent him one note. I said, remember, doesn't matter how many clouds are in the sky. The sun hasn't stopped shining. Find the sun and say the sounds. They had to remind Wayne Dyer, who made all this money off the sound. don't forget, say ah. So if you'd like, we can together say the sound of ah for creation to help create in you the tending for comfort, for transition. So we can grow new shells, so we can get bigger, so we can have a higher consciousness, so we can tell it to slow down. What if we could get 20 words a minute, 20 thoughts a minute, instead of 50? Oh, does that sound nice? Who doesn't get tired of it? The same thing over and over again. It stops our divine purpose for being here. Enough discomfort for growth, to transition, for a higher consciousness, to find grace. So the ah sound awakens that manifestation in us, and the om is the universal sound of truth. So let's start with ah. If you're all ready, close your eyes. All right, you guys have to work with me here because I have a really bad voice. Help, ah. All right, ready? Find your pineal gland, go into the middle of your brain. Feel a laser beam enter through your eyebrows, and I'm going to help with this. I'm going to help that energetically happen for you. There you go. See how that works? That's the gift of the divine when it comes through me for you. Right into your pineal gland. Feel a light little flicker in there. Now feel that same flickering light in your heart. Ask to be relieved of the pain. Ask for the goal that you have on the other side. Ask for the letting go. Now feel that flame kick up a little bit more in your heart and your third eye. You're going to feel your throat just open, and you're going to pull the sound of creation out of the bottom of your belly, through your heart, and up the top of your head and out your forehead. Ready with me? Ah. One more time. Ah. One more. Now hold that vibration. You feel that? That's a frequency. We can pull ourselves there anytime, and that frequency, it's the channel of the divine. And for that moment in time, your body now has the patterned memory of the grace that comes from the discomfort. Now keep that love alive in you, because the first and foremost, most important person that must see you is you. See your pain, have compassion for your pain. Know it's a necessity in life. It's the only way. Biological organisms, the earth, humanity, all living things grow is through discomfort. Look, they didn't ask me. Nobody said this is fair. It's terrible, actually. I spent a lot of time crying. But even the grace, through tears, they're necessary. When they're not a poor me, but when they're like, please, I'm ready for the comfort. I'm ready for the transitioning to grace. So let's now finish this up with the sound of Om. Wrap the package up together so that frequency is fully inside of yourself. All right, with me, deep from your belly. Om. Again. Om. One more time. Om. Keep your eyes closed. When we make these sounds, we've known since the beginning of time. Again, in the beginning there was the word. But now, research shows that these sounds rewire our brain. Bring us that comfort quicker. release the old thought patterns faster, literally change our brains. That took not very long to do those sounds 3 times each. I invite you to practice this every day. Put grace and transformation as your goal, accepting fully, as awful as it can be sometimes, the pain of the transition, the discomfort, and see you, and let God see you, because it is through love that we are seen, even if we think nobody else is loving us right now. Hari Om Shanti.